Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's uLaw webinar. The topic for today's webinar is payment integration with LawPay. And today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD credits, but it's, as I mentioned earlier in my previous webinar, it's going to be a demonstration of one of the key capabilities of the uLaw platform, which is to be able to deliver faster, more convenient, and effective payment solutions integrating with leading third-party payment gateway providers such as LawPay. As you probably know, I'm going to switch gears real quick before I get started to set the agenda. Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has a specific agenda. We're certainly going to talk about LawPay from a Canadian context. Of course, they've done a lot of work with the states south of the border, but they've started to make an impression here in Canada. And as a legal solution, we wanted to ensure that our clients and prospective clients have the capability to integrate through a single sign-on solution with this wonderful payment gateway. Once again, the title for today's webinar is Payment Integration with LawPay, not accredited for any CPD credits. In fact, our CPD credit does start next week. We have a very interesting session, and I thought I'll bring it up. If you go into Info, Webinar, uLawPractice, you could certainly see all of the different titles. You can see today is Integrating Payments with LawPay, and our webinar next week is going to be a CPD session, which talks about law office client management. If you do need the CPD hours, then you're also able to go into your YouTube, go into our channel, uLawPractice, and you would see under webinars a line of CPD sessions that I have run or others in my team have run, and you are able to view these recorded sessions of those webinars as well. Okay? So going back to our agenda in terms of introduction to LawPay, you could essentially Google LawPay Canada, or you can go to their main website, lawpay.com, which certainly talks about who they are as a company, of course, their breadth and depth of them as a company, as a team of individuals that support this payment gateway solution, if you will. And if you look at their Canadian website presence, you can clearly see the pricing, which I like because they've really made it very straightforward and kind of demystified this whole pricing situation. So you certainly talk about your individual needs, so they cater to kind of both. If you are a legal firm that manages both trust and general payments, which means if you are in the business of accepting retainers, so especially money in advance, and you need a compliant, legally compliant way to accept money through credit cards or other means into your trust account, other than the old school ways of cash and check, because we'll get into that. We'll talk about how important it is to have money in the bank as soon as you've signed that retainer letter. So payment gateways that are compliant with these specific guidelines of trust compliance ensure that the fees that they take out of your account, so the overall transaction fees, if you will, they ensure that the transactional fees are now taken or withdrawn out of your operating account. Okay? But if you don't have a trust plan, or let's say you don't have a trust account, and if you're only having an operating account, which is something that many legal firms do have, then you can switch to their standard plan as well. On their website, you could see the pricing differentiations on that as well. And I bring this out right up front because the integration between uLaw and LawPay, especially if you're a uLaw customer, does not cost you anything, right? It's not an extra cost on your uLaw subscription, but like anything else, if you are looking to utilize the convenience of LawPay to make those payments faster, recognize revenue faster, just like other payment gateways that we've worked in the past, all these individual companies have their own specific plans based on your needs, based on the number of transactions sometimes that may affect the cards that you want to use, etc. Right? So this particular website, I just searched up LawPay Canada, right away demystifies the overall pricing structure and I'm sure you can reach out to them and learn more about their pricing plans. Now, back to what we're looking to accomplish. Yes, you have a LawPay account, which is great, which is really the starting point, and you have, let's say, associated your financial institutions. So let's say you've opened up a trust account with TD, BMO, CIBC, any of those institutions, or others, credit union institutions, and you've now signed up for LawPay. When you sign up for LawPay, what they would do is they would ask you for your financial account information, right? They're going to say, okay, give us your TD trust account number, and what LawPay does is it creates your own user account. So just like how you log in into uLaw, or you log in into Yahoo or Hotmail, or any of these online cloud services to authenticate yourself, LawPay provides you their own username, password, and behind the scene, like other payment gateways, they now integrate those payment gateway integrations with the actual financial institutions. So really, long story short, what they've done is they've made a connection directly to a trust and or operating account, and when you ask for money from your clients, whether that's going into trust or general, you make that differentiation, and based on the nature of that transaction, the money gets deposited into the trust account. Easy peasy. Transactional fees get withdrawn out of your operating account, so leaving your trust account untouched, keeping them compliant, don't have to worry about reconciliation issues, etc. And life is easy, life is simpler, you've made your money faster, you're not waiting to, with bounce checks or issues that people have had in the past that has sometimes reduced the overall revenue recognition capability. Okay? And that's fantastic. So how does this integration happen? Why is it convenient, and why should you be bothered about really the convenience of this integration? Okay, that's really what we're going to go through. And again, I'm going to try and keep it crisp and short, being a long weekend and all. But our goal at uLaw has always been to keep it simple, straightforward, and most importantly, compliant. That's kind of really the bread and butter of us as a company, and we continue to go down that path, integrating with LawPay. Now, no matter which payment gateway your legal firm is utilizing, what we believe, especially post-COVID, and I'm sure you can appreciate, we've been running these webinars even pre-COVID. There was a huge value addition just pre-COVID as well. But post-COVID, that value has just been doubled, because now you, as a legal professional, are already practicing and embracing the cloud technologies to make it easier and simpler, and you're not tied down to a specific location, to make business that much more, I would say, efficient, but at the same time nimble, and you could be in one place and kind of be doing business across the country, right? But bottom line, in terms of the pros of why you would consider an integrated payment solution, getting paid faster and accurately. I think about the old school ways where you got a retainer check, and let's say you failed to deposit into your bank account, then you need to deal with the reconciliation timing of it, all the nuances of the check being deposited, check bouncing, and if it's bounced in the last minute, again, coming back to reconciliation headaches. So through the payment gateway, when you sign that retainer letter, you send either a receipt or an invoice or a payment receipt request to your customer. They can click on a link, and very similar to their current shopping experience of buying from Amazon or any of those cloud providers, they're just able to put a credit card and pay for that service. Of course, the caveat is I'm talking about a very standard retainer that's being topped up. After a certain amount, of course, you have to do the math if it makes sense. In terms of real estate and things of that nature, of course, it doesn't make sense, right? But yes, most certainly in a very day-to-day situation, payment gateways have really made it faster and more accurate and compliant to make this payment and recognition of revenue faster. It's cost effective and convenient. So if you really think about the value, the overall cost effectiveness of not having to deal with bounce checks, the time and effort that you have to put with dealing with reconciliation, and if you were to calculate that, the intangibles of your time being money, then you can certainly appreciate that the transactional fees and the other fees that go with enabling this cloud solution is that much more cost effective than the old school way of doing things. And it's convenient. So if you can put a price to that convenience, you could certainly come up as a winner. There's no doubt that payment integrations today have made the legal offices that much more convenient and faster, not just for your own internal bookkeeping, but consider this, you're making the overall experience of dealing with your legal firm that much more convenient for your end customers as well. They don't have to park, they don't have to come to meet you and pay you in person, they don't have to deal with checks anymore. They're just going to receive a link, click on it, and they can do that right from their mobile phone, making that much more easier and convenient to doing business with you. And let's keep in mind, that is status quo today. Everyone's providing this, and everyone's trying to find the next differentiator factor to make business easy. From an anytime, anywhere access, there's two conveniences. One, of course, from your customer's perspective that I mentioned earlier, but for your own internal office and bookkeeping. You get notified every time a payment's done. You get notified as soon as the money is at the bank because of all these different cloud solutions, right? So you pretty much can be anywhere, but being aware, you don't have to go to the institution in person. You could just be right in your home office, or you could be anywhere else and continue to do business as usual. The fourth convenience, which I think is a given these days, but still is a great feature to have, is that you don't have to worry about the headaches of the type of credit card company that your end customer has. The payment gateways today pretty much cater to a wide variety of credit card companies, and that's another major convenience that you can provide almost as a one-stop shop to your customer. Yeah. And last but not the least, we believe it's an easier way for you to manage your invoice balances and trust retainers. And let's assume there's no trust involved, and if it's just for general payment, you've just made it faster to recognize that money. By providing this convenience back to your customer, it's easy to remind them through these links. There's just one place to go to make that payment faster. You know, your customer says, hey, I'm sorry, I've got your invoice in mail, and I may have shipped it, check to you, but for whatever reason you've not received the check, right? Or sometimes wire transfers are not the most convenient, especially if people aren't dealing with debits and they want to use the credit card route. And again, going back to reminding you that the inconvenience and the time loss if you're dealing with reconciliation headaches because of the timing of checks arriving, leaving, human error, things of that nature. Okay? At any time, if you have any questions, of course, I'm trying to walk you through what the agenda is and what we're trying to do today. But if you have any specific questions, if you're a current user of LawPay and or uLaw, or you're exploring, please use the chat window at any time. Both me and my staff would be more than happy to answer any specific questions you have. Okay? Now, in terms of setup, how expensive is this? How much of time and effort do I need to put in? Do I need my IT guy to do this? Absolutely not. This is a simple yet very effective process of how you would go about doing it. LawPay, as I mentioned earlier, clearly defines the terminals that you have in terms of your trust and general or operating account, as it's called, right? They connect with the actual financial institution's accounts. So now you've made your route into these accounts, and we're, again, depositing into trust. So it's a one-way traffic into your trust account, and it's a two-way traffic in your operating account. So they would deposit the money into your operating account, take the fees. Of course, hey, there's no free lunch here, so there is a certain fees, and you have to appreciate that's the cost for the convenience that's being provided, right? So that is also taken out of the operating account. So that's why the workflow is very clear as to where the money goes in, where the money comes out. Okay. And of course, you ensure that the funds are approved at the time of processing. Another very critical differentiation. You don't have to wait a day, a couple of days, a week, whatever time that it takes to realize that this fund was not available. Right? It's as simple as you being able to pick up the phone, ask for the credit card, enter it, and be done with. You're going one step further to provide this convenience and the power back to your customer. They don't have the time even to be on the phone to give you the credit card number. You're sending them a digital document that contains just the link. That's all they need to make that payment. Okay? And at the time of transaction itself, the payment gateway, LawPay in this case, would clearly test your credit card, the customer's credit card, if there's any funds. So let's say it's a $1,000 retainer and the customer doesn't have any funds. It's going to give them a notice saying, sorry, insufficient funds, kindly use another credit card or payment method, right? So that we're not dealing with these faulty payments. And how easy is it to set up? It's a very simple process when it comes to setting up this integration with uLaw. The prerequisites, of course, is that you have a uLaw account, and the prerequisite is that you do have a LawPay account. Okay, that's a given. So you've done your due diligence of setting up these. And once you've done these two, it's as simple as using our settings. And I'll go through this in a minute. It's a one-time setup, and I'll remind that because it's not an ongoing change, unless, of course, you change your password key or your login information for whatever reason. But once you've set it up, and if you're not changing your secret key or pass key, then it's a one-time setup. In fact, in the case of LawPay, it's simpler because we have now invested in making that single sign-on connection between uLaw and LawPay. So LawPay has made it a little more stricter for all the right reasons, right, to keep security at a much tighter control. And they have invested internally in a single sign-on solution, where first you need to sign in, authenticate that you're really a LawPay user. That retrieves the different accounts that you've associated. And keep in mind, in certain legal firm cases, you may have multiple operating accounts, you may have multiple trust accounts, so you're able to set up all of that with LawPay. When it comes to uLaw, once you've signed up with LawPay, you come in here, just enter that in our settings, and once you save that in our settings, uLaw recognizes that you have now started to utilize LawPay as a method of receiving payments, okay? Alrighty. I'll reiterate before I move into the actual demo the top benefits of why you should consider, if you haven't already, consider a payment integration gateway. And there are many choices, and uLaw, of course, is not specifically aligned with a single product. But today's webinar talks about LawPay. They're making a big dent in the Canadian market. They're making it effective, easier to do business with. Of course, providing you with competitive pricing in appreciating the Canadian market and our volumes here. But really from an overall perspective, it's the efficiency, the flexibility, the compliance component, and the aspect of security, which is top concern, right? What about the security? What about the issues of money being misappropriated and things of that nature? So both uLaw and LawPay have heavily invested in the security component of our handshake between the two systems. We're encrypted, and we ensure that your information or no information, in fact, is released or leaked. In fact, uLaw does not even capture your customer's credit card information, be it any payment gateway. All we do is we enable you to make it easier to accept a payment in the workflow or while you create a matter and create an invoice, right? And when you're ready to accept that payment for a retainer or otherwise, we now send you to the appropriate payment gateway that you have set up in our settings. And from there on, that individual company, in this case LawPay, would take over. So when you send the link to that customer, it's actually a LawPay. But once you come back into uLaw, you're able to utilize the payment reference number that you received from LawPay for your own bookkeeping. Okay? And that's pretty much everything we wanted to show you in terms of our presentation slide. As you can clearly see, you can utilize this if you're in the office and you're taking it on your uLaw on your laptop. This could be as convenient as sending this as part of an invoice, let's say for general payments. And if it's a trust, you can even create a trust receipt, payment receipt with a similar link from uLaw, making it easier for your clients to do business with you. Once again, I'll reiterate, if you can go to lawpay.com, Canada, or just Google that, you have a specific web page that talks about Canadian pricing. You have a 1-800 number. You can call them if you have any specific questions. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to call us, because through this partnership with uLaw, if you're a current user, you are now able to take benefits of this partnership, if you will. So we have our own representative at LawPay who can help you out, answer any specific questions. Okay, so please reach out to support@uLawPractice.com. I'm just going to put that in the chat right now. And we'll be more than happy to help you through maneuvering this whole process. Okay. Now, with about 15-20 minutes into the webinar, and I want to focus another 15-20 minutes in demonstrating everything that I've spoken about, I'm logged in now into my fictitious legal account user of uLaw, of Roger Moore, someone you're very familiar with if you've been watching our videos and have subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, we thank you and request you to do so, because anytime we add CPD videos especially, you get notified automatically. Okay. So I'm logged in as Roger Moore, regular working day. And if you go in our settings, and specifically into our accounts, by default, if you have not signed up for anything, this is going to be set to none. Okay, let's start fresh right there. This is your default setting for payment collection. Okay, so let's go through a simple workflow, and I'll do this really fast. It's not a way to showcase the product to you. It's to kind of show you the workflow, really. So let me go ahead and add a client. And say, okay, Katie Shamlan, get through a community legal service reference. Toronto, Australia, and Ottawa. Make that as the mailing address. Okay. I could add a phone number. In fact, I could add an email. So anytime you have correspondence coming back from Katie, it's just easily associated with those matters. And I had done a webinar last week that talks about how you could use uLaw's Chrome extension and our toolbox to make it easier for you to docket all of those email correspondences that you have right into the matter. Okay, so do check that out on our YouTube channel. But I'm going to create Katie Shamlan as a client. Again, reiterating my settings. I've come in. I don't have a payment plan set up or a payment gateway integration plan set up. I would do this the old school way. Yeah. So I'm going to create a matter. So it's really the before and after. And let's say this was a family law separation. Okay. Let's say I got a $3,000 retainer. Let's say I do have a trust account and I do have a general account. Let me confirm that real quick. So I'll go into my accounts, chart of accounts. Yep, I do have my pooled trust account. Have a TD. And I have a operating account, general account with TD as well. Okay, that's great. So let me go in. So typically what I would do, us being a practice management legal accounting software, you would create maybe a retainer letter, right? Or you could create a receipt. Okay. Send this to your client. So I'm going to first intake that retainer. So I'm going to say action. It's a deposit and trust, so it's a new retainer. $3,000. One thing you noticed, there is no really a option for you to accept any payment. So it's blank right here. So this is the old school way of entering a check. Maybe they paid you. There's no integration here. It's all manual. Maybe cash. I'll just say check. Depositing this into my TD Canada account. Give them a receipt, yes. And this is the old school way of doing things. Just got that $3,000. Or you think you have. You've got that check and you entered it. Let's say you deposit this, 5 days later. You're going in for your monthly reconciliation. Or for that week. And here is that $3,000. Now what if this does not show up in your bank? Okay, at the time of reconciliation, you recognize what just happened. I've entered that $3,000 exists in my practice account or my playground account or my practice management system here, whereas the bank does not reflect that, because then you recognize that the check did not clear, maybe insufficient funds, whatever. Then you're ending up with NSF and costs associated with it, the time that you have to deal with going to the bank, talking to them, talking to your client, etc., etc. So you're reacting to that situation. Let's refund this retainer real quick. Okay. And I'll show you how the new way of doing things. We just refunded that check back to Katie. Okay, I'm going back to a blank slate. Now let me go into my settings, and I'll go into payment collection. And as you can see here in my drop-down, you have many different options. So as a company, as a business, we at uLaw integrate with many payment gateway third-party companies that are compliant with the Canadian Law Society's compliance guidelines, which is leave my trust account untouched. Don't mess up with withdrawing the payment or the transactional fees out of my trust account, even if it's a retainer payment. And all these companies do that. So right from Pivotal or New Way, you've got Monaris, you've got TD having their own account, you've got Global Payments, and really the new kid on the block that's doing really well is LawPay. Okay? So let me, just to give you a differentiation and overall experience, let me give you a Monaris experience so you know what you're dealing with when it comes to this versus that. Now, behind the scene, what's important, and this is something I have to mention, but again, you have to do your homework, is I encourage you to do some shopping. Talk to LawPay, ensure that you have all your facts right. Talk to some other competitor payment gateway options. But of course, LawPay does a better job of providing you the support. So pricing is one. It's commoditized. People can give you different pricing. What you need to really look out for is a company that you feel comfortable, has been in business doing this, and can give you that support which really is critical in today's cloud-based businesses. So it doesn't end, it's not a impulse purchase. It's just not a one-time purchase of a flower vase on Amazon, right? This is a relationship that you're looking to build with a vendor who's going to facilitate this for you moving forward. And hence, you need to be very comfortable with doing your homework and knowing the pros and cons of dealing with the options you have. Okay, so let me go back to that same experience, and I'm going to say, let me generate a retainer letter. Okay. Okay, so you've got this retainer letter. You send this to the client, and the client pretty much clicks that link, and this could be, because it's a PDF, they could have clicked it right from their phone, could be on the laptop, whatever, right? And as you could see here, this is going into the Moneris website. And this is the experience. Got your name, the customer's name, card number, expiry date, and you enter the information and you're done. So this is the Moneris experience. Let me show you the new LawPay experience. Before I go into my test account, because of course with uLaw being a vendor of record, all these businesses do provide us with a test account, so we encourage you not to use the test account if you're integrating. You want to use the actual name itself. If I use Moneris, for example, you do not see a pop-up in the uLaw window right now because it's going to be dealt with behind the scene. Where it comes to LawPay, what they've done, as I mentioned before, is they've gone one step further, added another security layer on top of the primary key or account key and the pass key. They've gone one step further, and they want to really authenticate you. Of course, I'm not going to go through this because this is a live account, but this is where you would enter your own LawPay username password. And once you've entered that, email password, uLaw would automatically register or would ask you to associate a favorite terminal ID and general terminal ID with uLaw. Okay? Because you may have multiple accounts. If you only have one trust, one general, that's cool. But if you have multiple, then once you've done that username password single sign-on, uLaw would prompt you a screen which would ask you which account you would primarily look to associate. And once you've done that, you move on to the next stage here, which is uLaw would automatically pick up your trust terminal ID, the secret key, general ID, secret key from LawPay, and this is where you stay. And this is, again, encrypted, the secret key, and you can't even see it. And even if someone were to see it, it's going to be encrypted, yeah? So it's, again, just going out of my way to say that it's a secure protocol of how we do this. Now let me go back to that same experience. I generate that letter. And it's for that same amount. Now you can see this is a more branded experience. This could be your own logo, your address, your information, because this pretty much comes out of what you've set up. It gives you the amount, which you can't change. This is, again, your end user's experience working with LawPay. And you can put in your card information in. Let's say this is Katie Shamlan. Okay. I'll say 0422. And if your customer were to hit the submit payment Again, this being a test account, we clearly ensure that you're not using it. So it clearly sees here's the payment receipt, okay, and here is an authorization code. Now we go one step further. The integration with uLaw gives you right away this email of that same information. So even if you close this, you don't have to worry about it, right? You have the authorization code, which is the important information that you need to enter that retainer information. Okay? This payment reference here, that's the key. And hit apply. Now, two things happen. When I entered that credit card information, of course, it's all fake information, as is the test, so please don't try it at home. I've tried it, doesn't work, and you can't really use it. But in terms of one aspect, if I had put in, let's say, a wrong credit card number, or if there are insufficient funds, LawPay is going to now connect with your bank, ensure that information, ensure that you can afford the $3,000 as a customer, and then come back and tell you right there. So, I apologize. It's no more a legal firm's issue dealing with payments. You've now transferred the control back to your customer. Now, customer needs to deal with their situation of using the right payment method to get you paid. The last thing I'll notice or talk about is, let's say there's a transactional fees. So let's take this example that they have on their website. Okay? So you are paying $20 a month, as let's say you have both trust and general, yeah? You're paying $20 a month. That's a subscription fees, let's say, to LawPay. And then you're paying 2.95%. So for that $3,000, you're paying 2.95%. I wish I was good with this math, but I'm going to say that's $88. Okay, that's the fees that you're going to pay. Again, I'm just giving an example. That becomes an expense, an office expense, right? So LawPay gives you a log of all these expenses, all the transactions, and this is when you log in into their account. Once they set you up, you can see they have their own login. This is the same login that we've integrated, security.lawpay.login. That's the same login you noticed here when I changed to LawPay. Okay, secure.lawpay.login. So we've done that integration already with uLaw. Okay. And what's important is when you do login into LawPay, they're going to pretty much give you each and every transaction that you have transacted through LawPay, the fees that are associated with it individually. So it's not $5,000 per month. It's going to be, here's $88 for this transaction. Here's $22 for this transaction. Why is that important? Because that's what's going to allow you or your bookkeeper or your accountant to come and help update that expense into uLaw or import that expense. You know, LawPay would give you a downloadable file, and you can pretty much import it as an expense into uLaw. So in this case, let me just say, I'm going to say fees, new wave payment fees. Let me create a new one. So let's say chart of accounts, under office expenses, I'm going to say LawPay fees. Okay. And again, I'm doing this manually, but with uLaw, you can import that as a bank statement and do this for the entire month in one shot. here's LawPay fees. I think I said $80. Oops, my bad. Okay, we calculate the tax. Alrighty, so this is the paid to LawPay, or this could be Affinity Pay, I guess that's the name. Yep, it's Affinity Pay, so that would probably be the business. Okay. And here's where, depending on whether you've used the favorite account or which general account you've used, you associated with the LawPay account, wherever the money was taken out of, you would notify that account. Okay. Pre-authorized debit, and you submit. Why is this important? Going back to your reconciliation. If I go into my general reconciliation, at the end of the month, just like how we reconciled our trust, you would notice the $88.50 as the transaction fees today. Ideally, LawPay would have withdrawn the same amount of $88.50 out of your operating account. In this case, let's assume it's TD. That's going to make it easier on you to match those two transactions. If they were to provide you with the number 500, and if you have to do the math of individualizing those numbers, that's just additional work. So this makes it easier for you to do that. Okay, so one added advantage, if you will. All right. Okay, I've already got the question, no trust account, only general, and that's fine too. If you don't have a trust account, as I mentioned earlier, and I think they have an option for that, if you don't have a trust account, then you just have to deal with the standard plan with LawPay. With uLaw, there's no cost associated with it, as I mentioned earlier. And let's say in this same Katie, Shyamla matter, there's no trust account. Let's create another matter. And let's say this was a wills in the state matter. I'll spell check that. Alrighty, so let's assume for that same matter, you're not dealing with trust account, you just have a general account or an operating account. Or maybe you do, but you're not using that trust account in this particular case. You could just go ahead and put the docket. So initial client intake, I'll say that's about 18 minutes. Okay. I'll say this is a flat rate, $600. Okay. I'm just going to cut through this real quick. I don't want to waste your time going through this. And you generate an invoice. Okay. So the last time we sent a retainer letter which had a link for payment. This time we're actually going to generate an invoice. And here is my invoice for the $600. Okay, has all the information, the amount due, $600 plus tax. Same thing. Here's the link that you would send to Katie. At this time, because of the workflow through which this came, so this did not come through a trust transaction. This did not come through a retainer workflow. This came through an invoice workflow. So we recognize when this transaction happens, the same information Okay, so let's put this, I forget what the expiry date was. I'm going to now make a payment for $678. Okay, so I'm going to say 678 multiplied by 2.95%, that's $20. And here is the payment receipt. And as I mentioned before, you now get two emails. So here's for the $3,000. Here's for the $678. Okay. You can take this reference number or the authorization code because it's unique. And deposit into accept client payment. This reference number goes right in here. The appropriate account. Again, you can give them the receipt. Now you can see there are multiple matters, and it's automatically uLaw has associated that 678 with the writing will. So one was money into trust. The other money was into general. Of course, you can do this right away if you're very specific, or you can do this at the end of the month as you're going through each and every expense. And this is how I've mostly seen people do it. And this would be, to be precise, $20.01. Round it off to 20. You've got a fee pay right away. Once you've had that one vendor signed up, automatically comes through. Pre-authorized debit or direct withdrawal, let's say. Now, again, reconciliation is one of the biggest steps you do as a legal firm, but it's just a reflection of the discipline that you put into keeping these books in order. You can see here is my $20. So you had your $88.50, $20. You had your client payment of Katie Shamlan come in at $678 with that reference number that we have from them. Okay? So overall, it's just a more faster, convenient way for you to receive funds or payments from your customers in a very effective, convenient, yet compliant manner. Because LawPay in this case would withdraw this $20 out of your operating account. In the case of trust account, they would deposit the retainer into trust and withdraw out of your operating account. So it's easier for you to reconcile both your trust and your general. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to showcase to you in terms of our integration. So going back to my slide share, once again, today's presentation was really on the payment integration capability of uLaw integrating with LawPay, which is a leading payment gateway provider for legal offices in Canada and as well as North America. And we spoke briefly about the advantage, the pros of exploring the use of an integrated payment solution, the ease of doing business with you as a business, a legal business, making it faster, convenient for your end customer to make payments anytime, anywhere, and the easiness with which you can set up this integration between uLaw and LawPay. Because now you're working right out of the matter with the new law. You don't have to make the payment first and then associate it with the matter. You can create, whether that's a retainer letter or a payment invoice, you can do that within the workflow of uLaw. uLaw then securely sends your customer to your LawPay integration portal, where they would put in their payment details like their name, their credit card number, and you as a legal firm get notified by email as soon as that payment's made, so that you can now come into uLaw and map the payment reference with the received amount, and that end of the day helps reconcile your trust and general accounts. And now you can compare the LawPay log of expenses and then import it into uLaw as a one-shot, or as and when every transaction occurs, you can then report that as an expense into your business right away. Okay, so with that, I will stop my webinar in terms of me speaking, but we'll open the floor for any questions that you may have and take it from there. Thank you. If you have any additional questions about LawPay, please do email us at support@uLawPractice.com, and we'll be more than happy to facilitate that discussion with our LawPay representative. Well, I just searched up LawPay Canada. The question was, where can I get more information? So this is what I searched up. So you could see Canada LawPay. There you go. Okay. There's more information about their compliance, and we're happy to be one among those software solutions. I think this is what you really have to look at. One portal, and then think of uLaw behind the scene here. So coming from uLaw as a request to LawPay, which then does its magic, comes back, you enter that reference number, which is key. In fact, you can download this as a PDF and that's pretty much come into your matter, and you can even upload it as a receipt document into the uLaw documents. So you have proof of this. Some of our customers also attach the email that they receive from LawPay, and that's a possibility too. Any other questions? I'm a current user of Monaris, and do you support Monaris, and what's the difference between Monaris and LawPay? Okay. Yes, we do support Monaris, and when you come into your uLaw account, and if you've not done this already, you should be able to utilize the connection with Monaris and uLaw already. You come into settings, and you see the Monaris account. In terms of the difference between Monaris and LawPay, as I mentioned, not looking to sell LawPay or one or the other. That's why I mentioned earlier, I would pass really the baton to you to do the homework. As a legal firm, doesn't get better than you as a legal practitioner to negotiate price, understand support, which is very critical. So price is number one. It's the tangible, very important at that. Each and every business looks at your current transactional volume and may have some special pricing and things of that nature. There's some promotional pricing that they may offer month to month. So for example, if I go into lawpay.com, right? Oh, lawpay.com. I think there's a certain promotion that's running that talks about certain fees being off. But yeah, each and every business is different, so I would encourage you to do your homework. Talk to LawPay, talk to Monaris, figure out the advantages and disadvantages. The one thing I do like about LawPay, I have to say, is the single sign-on. which provides a additional security layer, right? And they're 256-bit encrypted as well, just like uLaw is, which makes it easier for us to do business because we're definitely about the security at uLaw. We're all about compliance, but the underlying safeguard is we provide our customers the security. You can see ours is encrypted as well. So can the expenses be directly reported into uLaw? Can you help me understand that question better? So when you talk about expenses being directly... Oh, yes, okay. All right, so today, of course, you have to come in, use this payment authorization code, and enter it into the uLaw system. We're definitely doing the R&D to see how we can automate it. But as I mentioned before, you don't have to do this, ideally speaking, especially from an expense standpoint. If you're dealing with expenses, you have the log that you can go back to. You can download it as an Excel file and import it as an expense into uLaw. So that's one thing we've automated. But from entering it as a payment collection into that matter itself, that is still something that you would have to enter manually. And that's why each and every transaction is differentiated. Even within that same client, you have two separate matters that you're dealing with, right? You've got writing will and separation matters, two separate matters, two separate transactions, and that's why that's critical. So yes, you still have to do that manually today, but we're certainly working towards automating that as well in the future. Good question. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I certainly appreciate your time today and thank you for joining me. If you have any additional questions, as I mentioned before, support@uLawPractice.com is who you reach out to, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And we'll look forward to seeing you in our CPD session next Friday about Law Office Client Management. And thank you so much for joining. Have yourself a fantastic long weekend. Take care.